Hey everybody, this is Joe Yerke with my main co-host here,
Chris Williams.
And we are coming at you on a Tuesday night here, and this is Cross Culture Critic Podcast, and we're recording it on a Tuesday night. You're not going to get it till Friday.
Well, you're not going to get it till a week from Friday, but you won't know because you're listening to it now.
Correct, exactly. And so today is, and then this is where you shout out. I'm going to say today is, and then you're going to shout out on your way to work or at the gym what day it is. So, hello everybody. Today is, and this is Joe Yerke and
Chris Williams.
And we are coming at you with the Cross Culture Critic Podcast.
How's it going?
It's going. How about you?
Good. It's been quiet. I did, by now, everyone hopefully has been able to listen to the Steve Taylor interview, which I actually did last night, but you're hearing a week and a half from now. So I don't know. I'm screwed up with time, but I talked to him last night.
Steve Taylor's a great guy.
He was great.
He's got to be a great interview. I can't wait to hear it myself.
Oh, yeah, it was fun. So other than that, I think last time we talked, I was on the way out the door to go see It, and still recovering from the nightmares for that.
I still can't do it. The day after, I text you, how was it? And how the viewing go? And you were like, it was good. I forget exactly what you said, but whatever you said. You did say it was good, and which made me then again pull up the trailer on YouTube, and I was terrified. My girls are cheerleader practice. I'm sitting in my car wasting time till that was done, and I watched that, and I was scared to death just from the trailer.
It's pretty intense. I'm reading the book now. I'm still finishing the book because it's like 1,200 pages long, but it's a scary book. So I kind of wish I wasn't reading it this time because I was kind of prepared for everything. But there's some really scary images. If you don't like clowns, you're not going to like this. And
let me ask you this. If you don't give a crap about clowns, are you going to be scared?
Probably. Yeah,
okay.
It's intense. It's suspenseful. And if you have a problem with violence toward kids, that's pretty big in it, too.
I don't.
Okay, there you go.
I could care less about violence towards
well, you
kids.
might love it.
So, yeah.
Think of scarier Stranger Things.
I didn't see Stranger Things.
What? Oh, you didn't see Stranger Things? Oh, my God.
I was one of the 10 people in this country.
You have a Goonies poster on your wall.
I know.
And you need to see Stranger Things.
Here's my deal with Stranger Things. I put it on, when it first hit, I put it on while I was cleaning. So I wasn't really watching. I was watching, but I wasn't watching. It wasn't my main focus. My main focus was vacuuming. And so I kind of watched it, and I was like, oh, crap. Now I'm 20 minutes into this. Like, where am I? So I rewound it. And I watched it, and I watched the first episode, and I was like, okay. And I started the second episode, got about 20 minutes into that, and I was like, I'm lost. I don't know what's going on. So I rewound that one and watched it again, and then went and did something, never thought about it again, never went back to it. So 2 weeks later, people are like, hey, have you heard of this new show on? So I'm like, oh, I want to see that. So forgetting that I watched the first two episodes. I went and I was like, wait a second, I've seen this. So again, I watched the first episode, could not get into it. Tried it a third time.
Oh my gosh.
Watched the first two episodes, did not hook me. I've been done since.
Wow, I don't know if I've watched a show as fast as I binged that. My wife and I, we would watch 4 or 5 episodes at a time.
Really? How many episodes are in the season?
I want to say the first season's like 10 or 11.
Okay.
So it's not a long binge. It's not like, it's really easy with half-hour shows to get through those. This isn't quite as easy. I just binged The Good Place on Netflix. Have you seen that?
No.
It's an NBC show. They just put it on Netflix a few weeks ago. And it's with Kristen Bell and Ted Danson.
Okay.
And Kristen Bell dies and goes to The Good Place, which is not really heaven, but it's kind of the approximation of heaven there that's been specially designed for everyone.
Okay. And
the problem is she knows she doesn't belong there. Like, there was some glitch in the system.
Okay.
And it's a really funny show. It's really good. Kristen Bell's really funny in it. Ted Danson's really good in it. Kind of some twists and turns. I really liked it. It's by the people who did Parks and Rec.
Okay. So. I think since the last time we did a podcast, I think I finished Ozark.
Okay, I still need to get
started on I finished that one up, and that's fantastic. So
okay, I was going to get started on that, and then BoJack Horseman came back, and I'm a big BoJack fan.
Yeah, so. I saw you post on Facebook, but I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, it's good. It's dark. It's kind of one of those cartoons that is... It's funny, like, it's kind of that Adult Swim mentality.
Okay.
But then it also, like, deals with depression and alcoholism and stuff like that.
Nice.
So it gets, like, really, really dark. It's like therapy when you watch it. So yeah, I think you wanted to talk about guilty pleasures, right?
Yes, guilty pleasures. I know there's lots that fall under this category, whether it be movies, whether it be food, whether it be clothes. If you like to come home and fellas, slide into those Lululemons, leggings or whatever. But I want to talk about guilty pleasure music.
Okay.
Because a lot of times, my iPod, my music library is going in my car, and when I'm with friends and stuff like that, and a song will come on, and they will look at me in utter horror and think, why is this on there? Or they'll look it through like my vinyl or something like that and see something that what in the world is that? So that's my thing. And it doesn't have to be top 3. I mean, you could have 10 if you want.
Okay.
I like this, I like this, I like this. But what are those guilty pleasure?
Oh gosh.
When it comes to, and you know what? If I'm putting you on the spot here with music, and you're our movie guy, if you want to give us movies that are guilty pleasures, let's keep it in outside of the, let's keep it in the G-rated guilty pleasure movies.
Those are sexy pleasures.
Yeah, no Basic Instinct, But what's your? I'd like to know your music, but now that leaves my mouth. You might be more about the...
Oh, no. I have I think,
oh, you do?
I think the majority of my music is a guilty pleasure. I have the Spotify playlist with pretty much all the 90s Christian music I grew up listening to.
Perfect.
And I still play... I'm trying to get him on the show, so I hope he's not listening now. But Jeff Moore in the Distance.
Yes, we talked about him after the last show. Me and you talked about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's some stuff where if a friend came in my car and that was playing, I would turn it down like the guy in Office Space almost. Just crank it down because I don't want to hear him I believe in evolution. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
But,
I like that.
Yeah, so that, I mean, I still listen to a lot of that. Old Newsboys, and I don't know if I consider that a guilty pleasure.
Okay.
Because I think I actually like a couple of their old albums. Take Me to Your Leader's pretty good.
Okay.
And I think the big one that I don't like telling anyone I like this, so this is exclusive to this, Creed.
Oh my I'm about
gosh.
to punch you in the stomach.
What, you like Creed?
No, okay. That is a horrible guilty pleasure.
I mean, I think the only thing I can figure with Creed, because I don't like it. I think a guilty pleasure, the thing is it's not just everyone hates this, but I love it. I think it's secretly good. No, it's something that you realize is bad that you're still kind of drawn to. And Creed is kind of that thing. All their songs sound the same. Everything is we're the ones that over here. But man, I think I was in the 90s. I was in high school, senior year of high school when that was all probably coming out. And I think it was kind of my way to dip my toe into, here's some secular music, but it sounds Christian enough. So now I'm cool because I'm listening to Creed, and that got uncool very fast.
You bring up a good point. So your definition of guilty pleasure is something that everyone knows is bad, but you accept as good, or you still like it.
I like it even though I know it's bad, I guess would be the thing.
Okay.
Because I wouldn't consider...
That's different than my opinion, I guess my feeling of what a guilty pleasure is. And maybe I've grown up my whole life not realizing what a guilty pleasure is. But my number one guilty pleasure in music is Taylor Swift.
Okay.
So when I think of guilty pleasure, I think Joe Yerke, 6'5", 265 pounds, a police officer, always looks like, I always look like I'm angry. People are always asking me, are you mad?
Smile.
No. Yeah, no, I'm not. It's just the look on my face. And then I get in the car, or I'm in the car with my kids, and I put Taylor Swift on, and I can sing every song. And not just I could sing every song because it's, I've heard it 1,000 times. I'm singing every song because I like it, and I enjoy it, and I enjoy her music. So to me, I think that's kind of what I feel is a guilty pleasure, where it's outside of your norm, and if people knew that you liked it, they'd be like, what?
I guess I can see that.
But you embrace it, and you're like, I don't care. This is my guilty pleasure.
There are probably movies where that's like that, where I feel like people that have a certain expectation as a critic that I'm supposed to like the indie films and the
Con Air.
films.
We're gonna try and bring Con Air into every freaking
Con Air
podcast.
should come into everything. Con Air is a perfect example. It is a movie that I have to say I know is not good. It is a bad movie. It is badly written. The acting is so over the top. I have a blast with that.
Yep, love it.
But I wouldn't consider something like Dumb and Dumber a guilty pleasure.
No, I wouldn't either.
Because I think Dumb and Dumber is really good.
Yeah.
The movie that gets me, I can't defend it. I don't think it's a good movie, but it makes me laugh lately, is Daddy's Home with Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg.
I gotta watch it again. I'm gonna watch it
It's
tonight.
not great, but there's something about it that just makes me laugh really hard.
I'm gonna watch it again tonight because it is on Hulu.
Okay.
And I remember you saying that, so I gotta watch that again.
Yeah, that would be probably... Yeah, I can see your definition of a guilty pleasure, too. I think I've always just thought, I know it's bad, so I listen to it. But maybe it's I just really like it, and I don't want to...
And you don't care.
I'm trying to tell myself
you're gonna
it's
dance
bad.
like nobody's watching.
I am, to Creed.
With your arms wide open. So Creed, Jeff Moore in the distance.
Creed, Jeff Moore in the distance.
Newsboys, early Newsboys.
Early news. Well, yeah, probably early Newsboys. I don't like late Newsboys.
Now, early Newsboys like Shine, Let Him Wonder
that
What
is
You Got.
good. I like that.
Okay.
I like that. That was written by Mr. Steve Taylor, I believe.
It was.
But no, like right after that, where he had left, and it's kind of like Step Up to the Microphone,
Okay.
Love Liberty Disco, kind of stuff that was not that good. But I think because it was like the fabric of my childhood, I'm like, oh yeah, no, I like this. This is good.
Yeah. Okay.
I can't think of much else. I used to think Huey Lewis was, but no, Huey Lewis is
good.
Maybe some Billy Joel. I like Billy Joel a lot. But the older I get, the more I'm like, I don't know if he's good. But I do.
You know what? I love me some Billy Joel, and again, I wouldn't put Billy Joel in that category because I think he's fantastic.
Really?
Like, yeah, I really do. At one point in my life, I owned like a box set of his that was
really?
amazing. And a week ago, I went through my iPod, and there's like one of the 6 CDs or whatever loaded in there, and the others are gone. Like, just gone.
Yeah, now you can get it all on Spotify.
Yeah, I have no clue where it went.
I used to think Weird Al was a guilty pleasure.
Oh, I think that would be.
I don't know, because then I started listening to Weird Al again, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the man is brilliant.
Yeah, he is.
Like his wordplay and everything.
I think Weird Al is like a 20s. When you're in your 20s, it's a guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
Because you listen to it as a kid and you laugh at the songs and you think it's funny. And then you go through your 20s and that's when you're supposed to be listening to like music that makes you think and that pushes the boundaries.
And the comedy is edgy.
Yeah. And then you wouldn't be in your like dorm room like everyone else is listening to Killers or some band that's got a name that's 3 sentences long.
You're listening to My Baloney.
Yeah, exactly. And then you wouldn't really listen to Weird Al, but the people who go through college, like, I love Weird Al, like, to me, that would be a guilty pleasure. Then when you become, you move out of that and you're a parent, you're middle-aged and stuff like that, to turn on Weird Al is just fun again.
Yeah, well, and the thing is he's outlasted all these bands he's parodied.
Absolutely.
And I heard someone say, if you want to know how brilliant Weird Al is, listen to a parody song that isn't written by Weird Al. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah, totally. Like those little crummy ones that like they play on the radio like every now and then. Something, some radio station will come up with some stupid parody. Yeah, nothing compares to Weird Al.
Yeah.
He is good.
There was a good Creed one that they used to play on the Drew and Mike show to bring it back to Creed, and it was like, my mouth's not open. It was pretty great. What about Taylor Swift? What else?
To me, I have Taylor Swift. Another one is Amy Grant.
Oh, okay.
Amy Grant, anything that comes out of her mouth. Like, her voice is ridiculous good. And I was stuck in an elevator with her once.
Really?
Yep. With a gentleman from a punk ska band that I shall not name. We were stuck in an elevator at the Dove Award week. And it was her manager and her and myself and this other gentleman, and he ripped a fart. And so we had to travel, I would have to say 20 stories up in this elevator with a horrendous smell with Amy Grant and her manager and us two dirtballs in there. And That's my Amy Grant. That's the only time I ever met Amy Grant.
Did she like kind of scoot away from you guys? Or?
She didn't do anything. I think she was just she probably prayed more that day, that moment, than any other time in her life, and just wanted out. Like, she was going up to the top floor, like the penthouse where all the like interviews with the big wigs and the big magazines were and everything like that. And we were like screwing around on the elevators, like playing elevator tag or something, like a bunch of morons. And then she just happened to be wrong place, wrong time.
Oh,
so that's my Amy Grant story. But so Taylor Swift, Amy Grant, that voice, a song that I can rock out to, and I have in my car screaming at the top of my lungs, is Carly Rae Jepsen, Call Me Maybe.
Yeah, okay, I gotta admit, yep, that might be on mine.
That song is fantastic.
That is an addictive song.
Another one, I don't know who sings it, but the You Don't Know You're Beautiful. It's like the boys, it's like a boy band. You don't know you're beautiful.
Okay, yeah.
Whoa. That song I can rock out to for whatever reason. Anything Christina Aguilera.
I was literally just wondering the other day, whatever happened to Christina Aguilera?
Christina Aguilera is a mom now, and she's still that trashy, good-looking. And that, to me, that was half the guilty pleasure. Was she was kind of this mascara dripping down her face, cleavage just spilling out of her shirt. And I was like, oh, she's so trashy.
But I kind of like it.
But I like it. And so Christina Aguilera is on there. One, if you're from the Detroit area, I don't know about nationally how well known these guys are, but ICP.
Oh, no.
I grew up with ICP. My junior year of high school and senior year, ICP was getting big around here. They were releasing like their second album or something like that. Ringmaster, the Black and Gold album.
Yeah, my brother was into them.
And I thought it was hysterical. It's so vulgar. It's so profane. It's all that stuff. It's hysterical.
Now, are you a juggalo?
I'm not a juggalo, but I think it's hysterical. And if you ever watch the show Workaholics,
yes,
there's an episode of Workaholics where they meet a girl and she asks one of the guys out on a date to go to the Juggalo Fest, the gathering of the Juggalos. Yeah. And the one guy, he is so thirsty. He is so thirsty. And again, it might just be me and Chris talking on this one. We might be leaving a lot of people out due to geographical stuff. But he's at this Juggalo convention, and he's so thirsty, and all they have is Faygo. And he is so angry because he's like, I don't know what this Faygo is. And by the end of it, he drinks a Faygo like Moon Mist or a Red Pop, and then he is just hooked. So for the last 5 minutes of the show, he's just slamming Faygo. And Faygo is our geographical, like, local soda pop. So I know, like, I've gone down to Georgia, and I love a soda pop in Georgia that they have called Big Peach. They have Knee High in other areas of the country. They have, and I don't even know. Take your pick. You know it's local to you. But around here, it's a pop called Faygo, Faygo, and they make just great flavors and good stuff. But that's it. And then my last one is Meghan Trainor.
I don't know if I know that.
Meghan Trainor has
I know the name, but
she had a song that like bass no or
oh yes, okay, all about bass.
Yeah,
yes.
like about her butt being big or something like that. It's all about the bass no treble.
My son, I remember him singing that next car once because my wife would have it on the radio. Mm-hmm. We're driving around the road, and he's like 2 at this time. I just it's all about the bass, about the bass.
Yeah.
Why are you singing?
Exactly. And then she also did the lead song for the Peanuts movie.
Okay,
that came out a few years ago, Feel Like Dancing.
Yeah.
And that's a great song. That's a good one. So those are kind of, I went through my iPod. Those are my guilty pleasures, with Taylor Swift being the absolute top. Yeah. My daughter got to go to her concert last time she came through Detroit because some friends of hers took her there. Shout out to Lindsay Kumpla and Haley Holman. They took her there and made her feel like $1 million, and they had a great time. But Taylor Swift, she's great because I like that my daughters can listen to her. She's not all sexual in her songs. Mm-hmm. She's not, cussing and swearing and all that stuff. So my girls can buy an album and listen to the whole thing, and it's safe and it's all that good stuff. And she's a decent role model. So sue me.
Now, have you heard going back to ICP, though, have you heard the song Miracles?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when they talk about magnets.
How do they work?
Exactly. And so if you guys know ICP, and if you've seen that Saturday Night Live skit where they just mock the daylights out of that song, that's so funny. But yeah, so those are my guilty pleasures, and yours too.
Sounds good. That was fun. So yeah, moving on to the big topic of the night. You wanted to talk about evolution.
Yeah, I want to talk about evolution. I was all fired up the last time. Today, my jets have kind of cooled a little bit. But evolution, like it's a whole topic that, I mean, I think we have, a half hour left in our podcast or something like that. And obviously it goes way past that. But evolution and Christianity and science and all that stuff has always, I don't want to say baffled me, it's interested me. And I guess what I find most interesting, and this might be a ballsy statement. This might be a ballsy statement. But I think what's interested me is how science and scientists, again, my opinion here, are so smart, but when it comes to something I feel is so simple, they seem so dumb.
Okay.
And so to get into that and to get into details, like for me, I believe that God created the earth and everything on the earth. And I think, we're born with this, we're born with this stuff within us that at some point in history, at some point, with whether it be languages and the different languages we speak. I mean, there weren't, like, one guy didn't just invent the English language. Like, we weren't just all making clicks and whatever, and then some guy just invents the English language. I believe it was put within us. I don't believe that it just, whatever. So there's just things that go on throughout history. Some would look to the Tower of Babel as to where, the different languages broke off and the different tribes and things like that. So, like, I look at stuff like that, and then we've talked about it before. I find it impossible to believe that somewhere out there was the primordial ooze, and from that there was a spark, a catalyst, if you were, which then did something, and gases and liquids and stuff united to make this earth. And then not only did it make this earth, but then plants started forming, and amoebas, and all these different things. And amoebas turned into fish, and fish turned into alligators, and alligators evolved into penguins, and penguins into chimpanzees, and chimpanzees into humans. Like, I find that so stupid. And so for me, whenever I hear evolution, and since school has started, I know my kids are, going to be going through it again in school. And they're always going to hear about it in school, obviously, just like we did. And to me, it's comical. And I just think it's comical to think that that's what we came from. Okay.
So you're a creationist.
I'm a total creationist.
Are you a 6-day, Earth is 6,000 years creationist, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't believe the Earth is as old as science believes.
Okay.
I understand that people who are not believers are going to come with the notion, as it is, that science automatically takes God out of it, right? Because they have to prove this is what we have, and this is what we have to look at the facts of what we have, and we can't do that. But then, like, one guy like Dawkins, the great, he did the whole thing that the God.
The God delusion.
Yeah. Okay. Dawkins, and so he just comes. He puts so much energy into proving that God doesn't exist, and that all this that evolution happens. That, like, to me, it's just, that's a very smart guy that I think he just sounds stupid.
Well, okay, yes, and I think he came from. Is he the one? Christopher Hitchens died. I don't think Dawkins did. They come from that strain where they're not just atheists; they are anti-theists, where their whole energy is, if you believe in God, you are dangerous.
Yeah,
and I don't like. I obviously don't like that. I would definitely. I think we've talked about this briefly on the show. I come at things a little differently. I came prepared with my Because Science shirt on.
Yes, with Beaker and
Dr. Bunsen Honeydew.
Yep.
I would probably... I'm cautious when I say I'm not a creationist. Because I feel like as soon as I say that, it means I don't believe God did any of this. And that's not what I believe. I think what I am is... There's this term, evolutionary creationist, where I think God created the universe, but I think it's been billions of years. And I think when we look at it scientifically, it looks like the process of evolution. But I don't buy the evolution as a worldview that it was all random. It just kind of just happened, and oops, we have people. I don't buy that. There's too much. I feel like there's too much purpose in the universe. There's too much design.
Exactly. Well, like look at math. Look at the study of math. If you have... How can you have organization and math come out of chaos? So, like, you have an explosion. So, there was this primordial ooze that was out there in space, or was space even there? Something created space, right?
Yeah, there always has to be a cause for something.
So something happened, and so now you got gases and all these things forming, and all this stuff happens, and... it's terraforming, and there's atmosphere, and now there's vegetation, and all this stuff. And within that, there's mathematics that goes with everything, right? So with all of that, there's math. And so you take pi, and you say, okay, well, with pi, you can do this. And I'm no mathematician, so I sound like an idiot talking right now, but I know it's in my brain. I'm just trying to get it out. So you take things like math to where it's just, that's the way it is. Like, whether you're doing certain equations here on Earth or in space on the moon or certain, like, everything is the same. Like, that stuff is the same. And I don't see how measurements and algebra and physics and all that stuff can come out of an explosion that things just happen to happen.
Yeah, and we'd be in agreement there. I think there's a little bit more of a marriage between creationism and evolution. When I don't think anyone knows the whole story yet.
Oh, I do.
Okay. I don't think I think science is very close to understanding how everything happened, but I don't think that can explain the why everything happened.
But don't you think they get really close and then they don't want to figure it out? Because if they do... So here's my other angle that I take on it. Let's say you get to that point where you're proving, like, kind of like the way what the Bible says, and historically, we know that the Bible is the most historically accurate book throughout history. And every day geologists and stuff like that are digging up, whether it's tombs or whether it's cities and things like that, and tablets and scrolls that back up what the Bible has said all this time. Don't you find it weird that, like, I think science and scientists get on something where they get to almost that point where they realize, like, wow, we're almost on the verge of, like, realizing that maybe this was creation. But then what happens after that? Like, as a human being and the way we live in this world and the way our religion is set up, you can't walk to that point and say, hey, you know what? I think God did create this. I'm now going to go sleep with 6 people, go, do this, do that, do all this stuff that the Bible says is counterproductive to living a Christian life. And I think that's the thing. I think people want to prove that God doesn't exist because then you don't have a moral code that you now live under.
But I think the assumption there is that scientists are all atheists. There are many scientists who are Christians who believe in evolution. The Catholic Church has been okay with evolution for thousands of years. I think it's more of an evangelicals are kind of the last young earth creationists. But I do think you make a good point that there are people who, it's not that they don't believe in God, they don't want to believe in God.
Yeah.
So I think there is something to that where people, I think this is why this becomes a stumbling block for people when the topic of God comes up, because it's not so much that they can't make their way around that idea of origins. It's that if they do, then there's a moral claim on their life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do think that's true. But I do think there are a lot of Christians who believe in evolution. Darwin did. Darwin was a Christian. Darwin believed in God, too. Augustine believed in... I think it was too early for him to know evolution, but he believed that the Genesis account was more metaphorical at that point. I know for me, evolution, like coming to this point where I believe that I can have both my faith and science, it like saved my faith, knowing that. Because I was raised, you were raised in the church, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I was raised, were you, what denomination were you? Was it pretty strict or?
I was just raised non-denominational.
Okay.
I just went to a non-denominational church and Bible-believing, just a Bible-believing church, nothing taken, what I would say, like, out of context. Like, church I grew up in didn't have any, like, we weren't handling snakes, drinking strychnine.
Yeah.
We did the sacraments. We believe that Trinity and all that good stuff. Just a good old non-denominational.
I grew up very fundy. Very fundamentalist Baptist. It was definitely, we were taught that it was 6-day creation, young earth, and that basically if you were a Christian, you believed this. And it was kind of like, if you don't believe this, you're not a Christian. And, I accepted that growing up. I was in youth group and stuff. But as I got older, I just started asking a lot of questions. I went to college, and I didn't really, have the God's Not Dead experience where the professors were telling me, write God's not dead, or God is dead on a piece of paper. But I'm suddenly being exposed to, ideas of philosophy that are different, from when I've grown up in the church. I mean, people talking openly about, well, does God even exist? Does God not exist? When you went to chemistry class, it was kind of assumed you believed in evolution. And it all started, I started asking a lot of questions at that point. And the evidence for God, that I always felt okay about that. But creation was the one thing that I just couldn't get my brain around. And I'm kind of thinking as I talk here. So
Right, yeah, as a...
as I read books, there were a lot of books there, apologetics books. The Case for Christ, Evidence That Demands a Verdict. But I kept coming back to this idea that there were two things. One was, this was all written by people who were supposed to be writing this stuff. They went out saying, we're going to prove creation. We're going to prove creation. We're Christians, so we're going to tell you about creation. I wasn't getting anything outside the church that said creation is, the 6-day creation. I do want to clarify that. And then I started to ask, well, we accept science in every other area. So when I go to the doctor, I trust that he's had enough medical training to know what's going on, to be able to kind of deduce what's going on with my body if I'm sick and provide the right medicine to get me better. I depend on the science of engineering to get my car from here to there. We don't ask, we kind of accept that what they say about space is what the truth is. And it just seemed to be okay, evolution seems to be the one thing where we're saying, nope, we can't accept that. We can accept all the other science.
Well, here would be my little disagreement with that. All that stuff can be tested in the now. Like with science, you can all that stuff that goes on with your body, we have x-rays that can look inside bodies, and we can do this, and we can do that, and things can be tested in the here and now to start, chapter 1 here. So let's just say cancer, right?
Right.
Let's just say cancer, the study of cancer, let's say it started in the 60s. We've had this hands-on experience with cancer. I think what I find ridiculous is some guy who's a dinosaur historian who's never laid hands on an actual dinosaur other than the bones and can deduct all this stuff from a bone.
Okay.
Or can just come forward and say Pangea, right? Isn't Pangea the whole thing that...
It was all one continent.
It was all continent and it broke apart. So when you look at how they say Pangea, we've all seen the still photos in school. So it was the one big thing, and then it broke apart into the different continents that were different shapes, and then over time, well, anybody can do that. Like, I can take, you know what I mean? Like, I can take an idea and say, well, I think it all started in space and then broke apart, and these pieces fell to Earth and now formed, you know, the shapes of the continents that they are now. Like, I just find that absolutely ridiculous that this is, you know, that is what a couple of people sit around and say this is what happened, and then everyone's like, yes, when that can't be tested.
Right, you can't replicate it.
Right.
The same way, like, the argument that atheists always give is, well, prove to me that there's God. I'm like, well, you're literally asking me to prove something I can't prove. Like, I can't...
Exactly.
Like, I think we all hit limits there. But I think there's been enough research done, not just in fossils, but in genetics, in geology. It's all these different sciences lining up and then theories kind of proving themselves out, where I've been like, oh, maybe it is. And I'll be on the record, I haven't done deep dive research into evolution.
Oh, no.
I was a journalism major, not an English major, but I think I just started to get to this point going, okay, what if I'm wrong? Like, I grew up being a creationist. What if I'm wrong? What if evolution's true? Because we've had to adjust our theology for science before.
And me and you have had this conversation before. Like, I also want to clarify, for me, I don't think I'm to the extreme, not extreme, but I don't think I'm to the point where you are, where I kind of melt the two together in more areas. I think you melt the two together more than I do. But, like, I understand, like, okay, in North America, there's, 100 different variety of sparrow. So I can understand that sparrows, God created sparrows, and little changes happened because these sparrows are in desert climate, and these sparrows are in woodland climate, and these sparrows are in Florida, in a humid climate. And okay, so I understand there's little tiny changes amongst sparrows. But my big problem is that, like, sparrows came from pterodactyls, which came from, you know what I mean? Like, those big evolutionary things that we're taught growing up in school, that it's like, you look at that chart on the wall of, like, the amoeba growing into, the whatever, into, and then it's like a fish with flippers that walks up on land, which is now an alligator. And then again, somehow that alligator is now a penguin-looking thing. Like, that's what I find ridiculous. And when science comes out and says, like, oh, well, this bone in the human body shows that this was probably from gills, and these bones haven't been used, so they've, like, that stuff I find absolutely stupid. Again, I can understand a little difference in a sparrow. I can understand, there's, 4,800 different types of sharks. Like, okay, I understand that. I get that. But to say that we all came from a single-celled organism that floated around and then, split in this, and, the whole thing of, like, well, the way a giraffe got its neck was over millions of years. This horse...
Billions.
Yeah, that billions of years this horse was trying to reach the upper foliage. Dude, if I try to dunk a basketball today, which, let me tell you, I could back in the day, but now I can't. Like, if I sit there under the net and try and dunk a basketball without dunking, without jumping, and I pass that down to my children, they pass that down to their children, and every night for 3 hours, I sit underneath the hoop while the sun goes down, and I try and dunk it without jumping. I guarantee in a billion years, my great whatever grandkids are not going to have arms 10 feet long dunking basketballs.
Sure.
Like, that's stupid.
But I do think you can look at some of the fossil records for, like, whales was the one I was looking at today. And you can just see different small differentiations. So, like, whales, according to the fossil record, used to actually walk on their feet. And just over time you look and you see the way the skull looks and the rest of the body, but it just starts losing things or gaining things. And I don't know how that accounts for humans, because I do get tripped up when it comes to humans. Because no other species has evolved consciousness, right? I mean,
right, absolutely,
and that's where I feel like science and faith kind of work hand in hand, because I'm like, I don't know how we got consciousness. Oh wait, I do, because I believe we're made in God's image, and I believe He guided that and gave us that. I think what it more came down to was I did see a lot of things that, even though I didn't know how they all fit together for evolution, it seemed credible, and all the stuff was going in the same direction. Whereas with creation, anytime I tried to do any research on it and get people to back it up, I got a lot of kind of like conflicting information, or, well, we don't know, it's just got to take it on faith, or,
well, see,
this is what the Bible says, and it's true because the Bible says it.
Right, and I understand that, and I think that's where people will probably accuse me of just blind faith. Just you're just stupid idiot with just blind faith. But at a certain point, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, no.
Because my thing is, when the Bible, through all the chapters of the Bible, all the books of the Bible, what it's telling me is what it's telling me. And so I don't think I should take all this literally, and all these stories, this is what this story is telling me, this is what this book of the Bible, this is what happened in history. And now, but then I get to Genesis and I have to say, well, this is a ballpark of what happened. Like, to me, I think if God had the wherewithal to create the universe, Earth is created, we're created in his image, we're able to, I wholeheartedly believe that if God can create the universe, He can make the books of the Bible come together, and all the letters that everyone wrote, to put these together, to put them together how He wanted it done, and the Bible is made. I don't believe within that, with the way the rest of the Bible rolls, that Genesis is just kind of like, just kind of take this for, it just kind of happened like this. Just go with it. Like, to me, I want to say, you know what? God is a lot smarter than us,
Right.
Again, the smartest person on earth does not even compare to the stupidity of God. So, to me, like, there's a certain point that's like, you know what? Maybe we're trying to figure something out that's so far outside our brain. And again, I think by this time, when people listen to us on this show, you're a pretty smart guy, and you're very well read, you're very well educated. I'm not.
I'm also liberal, so I might be very well read.
Exactly. and so, like for me, I go by like my feelings, I go by my thoughts. And I think it probably shows on this, the way that you speak about things, the way that I speak, because I'm just kind of like more from the heart. This is my gut, and that's the way it is. And you, again, I think you're very eloquent in how you speak, and you back up really well. So for me, I'm just kind of like, this is what I think, and if you know.
But I think there's a good point to what you say, because the fact of the matter is, I have to also admit that if I got to heaven and God said, "Hey, guess what? It was 6 days." Okay, He's God. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
there is that part where I'm like, if God wanted to snap His finger and make it all with the appearance of age, I don't doubt He could do that. Like, and if I get to heaven, I find that out, awesome. So I don't hold it too tightly. For me, I couldn't get past that question. And so I did start doing some reading on Genesis and realized older cultures, like the biblical culture, didn't necessarily read it literally. Like, to them, it was their story of where they're from and how they fit in. And among all these other tribes, the Genesis account is saying, no, there's these religions that believe in all these other gods. Where do we come from? We believe one God. And we believe we're chosen people. And we believe this is the story we're in. Have you ever seen the movie Noah?
No.
Okay. It's a weird movie with Russell Crowe. But there's a part where Noah and his family are on the boat. And, the floods are going outside. He tells them this story. He tells them basically the creation account, Genesis 1. And the way they tell that account, it really snaps something into place with me where I'm like, oh, this is how they would have looked at Genesis 1 as, not a science text, because they didn't necessarily know what science was at that point, but okay, this is our story. And to me, all it did was that thing going, okay, do I believe God created the earth? I'm like, yeah. Do I believe He could have used evolution to do it? Sure. Does it harm my faith? Nope, I can believe this. It doesn't have to trip me up anymore, and I can move on. Like, I think that was the biggest point for me. And I don't think like my own wife, my wife and I, we disagree on this. She's not a 6-day creationist. She's kind of like a, I don't know, 6,000 year creationist or something like that. But she does not believe in evolution, and we go toe to toe on that sometimes. But at the end of the day, what I hate more than anything are the strictures that you see from like Answers in Genesis, where it's like, if you don't believe exactly what we're telling, you're not a Christian.
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe I don't want to say believe, I don't agree with any of that, because, again, the thieves on the cross next to Christ, to me, that's always like my final, what
did he know?
Yeah, the thief on the cross, he simply believed that Christ, was who he said he was, and he was going to heaven.
Yeah.
And so he didn't, necessarily know the story of creation and believe in that and do all these other things. All he did was believe in Christ. And to me, that is being a Christian.
Yes.
And so, again, I always use like really stupid metaphors. My friends and family always joke with me that I use like metaphors and analogies that make sense to me but might not make sense to anybody else. So for me, it's like, if you're not a believer, you're just kind of walking through life, right? I think once you kind of find Christ and you accept him, you're put in a vehicle. And it makes things a little bit easier because you have kind of a rule book and a roadmap as to where you're going and to kind of how to do things. I think all these things that we discuss on this show, whether it's evolution, whether it's this, whether it's that, it just makes that ride easier. So the thief who accepted Christ got that car to get to where he was going. Let's say heaven, okay? So he gets that car to drive there, and boom, he's there. All these other things that we go through in life, maybe add seat warmers, maybe add a nice radio, maybe add a nicer ride and a more comfortable ride to get to your end point in your life.
And you could want vinyl. You could want leather.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And so it's, it kind of adds these things. So I think when we do talk about evolution, that has always been one of those things that it made me think earlier when I was kind of talking about how I just talk from the heart. Maybe we're not made to understand, like we can't wrap our mind around maybe the Genesis is what the Lord's like, this is what they can understand.
Yeah.
And then we can kind of have them debate on this, and hopefully strengthen their faith with this. I think to the movie Dogma, where angels obviously are always in communications with humans, because at the end when God actually opens in the movie her mouth, heads explode.
Yeah.
Like you cannot take in that power of God. And the geniuses here on earth, again, don't even line up with the stupidity. Like it's not even close. And I think when we start to do that and we know everything and everything is figured out, I think maybe there is things that God held back from us. Like maybe we're not supposed to know everything.
Yeah.
Maybe we shouldn't know everything. And so when it comes to stuff like that, and Genesis being it, I think if the Bible's telling me it was created in 6 days, I believe that it was created in 6 days because it's in the Bible. And I think if the Bible, like the way God has presented everything else in my life, I think if it was, it was over 6,000 years or something like that. Each day was, each day was 1,000 years. Well, then he would have said that. And the Bible would have said that, because I don't think it's that big of a deal if Christ is talking to us in parables and in the Gospels and all these different other stories that are in the Bible. All he would have had to do is in that part, if it was that type of scenario, just tell us, hey, over 1 million years, the God created all of this stuff. But he didn't. It was over 6 days. And so for me, that's why I wholeheartedly believe, because I wholeheartedly believe that all he would have had to said was, no, it took 6,000 years, not 6 days.
Well, and I look at it, and we're going to wrap up soon, but like there's the I don't have time to get into it now, but there's this whole belief that Genesis 1 is poetic, and when you look at it at the order of creation in that, it actually mirrors the way they believe the universe was laid out. Like water at the top, like it's really, really weird how closely it lines up. But I think it does come down to how do you read Genesis 1. But at the same point, I do like there was a point where I had to stop asking myself questions on it because I'm like you said, maybe God, maybe the point is I'm not supposed to know it. I'm just supposed to ask God. I'm supposed to trust God no matter what is true. Mm-hmm. And the one thing I don't like, as much as I don't like answers in Genesis telling people they're not Christians if they don't believe in a 6-day creation. I also don't like the belittling that goes on when people believe in evolution. They look at people who don't and like, oh, they're rubes. They're stupid. Some of the smartest people I know believe in 6-day creation. Like,
thank you.
You're very welcome. No, like there are pastors I have studied under who believe this, and I disagree with them on it. But I've read their books; they've impacted my faith. I trust them. My wife believes in creation, not evolution. She's smarter than I am. I think we need both. We need, like, science for me has expanded my view of God. Like, for me, that brought me a lot of peace. And looking at this idea that maybe God used billions of years and took his time to get to people. I'm like, well, that's a lot of patience to show just to get to us. And that amazes me. But there are other people who the only answer they need is God made it and he holds it in his hand and let's move on. And like, that's a good point too. I don't, I struggle with how important this should be to me.
Yeah.
Like,
and I think for conversation and podcast sake, I think it's a fun topic. Do I in any way, shape, or form, again, think that someone who is a Christian and loves Christ with all their heart but agrees with evolution is not truly Christian? No, that to me, that's asinine. When I always talk to friends and stuff like that and people ask questions of about a decade ago, I kind of came up with this thing that I call, and friends that are listening to this, you've probably heard me say this a million times in my life. I came up with this thing called fast food Christianity. Okay. And basically what it is let's take hamburgers. Mm-hmm. You're hungry. I'm hungry. We want to eat. You're gonna leave here tonight. I'm gonna leave here tonight. And what are you getting for dinner? I'm gonna have a hamburger. Oh, I'm gonna have a hamburger too. You stop at McDonald's and you buy their hamburger. I stop at Burger King and buy their hamburger. Somebody else stops at Wendy's and buys their hamburger. Did we all have hamburgers? Yes, we did. We can all agree that we had hamburgers. Mm-hmm. Is a McDonald's hamburger totally different than a Burger King? Absolutely.
Yes, one gives me diarrhea, the other is McDonald's.
Right, right. And are they completely different from a Wendy's? They all use different buns. Mm-hmm. Some use shredded lettuce, some use fresh lettuce, some use nasty lettuce, some use pickles, some don't use pickles. You can go on and on about the difference, but at the end of the day, they're all hamburgers. And we can all get fed from those hamburgers. But what we do is we end up going to where we feel most comfortable or we like those the most. So a Catholic may be a Wendy's hamburger, the Catholic Church. If you enjoy Catholicism and you enjoy the way the masses are set up and all that stuff, are you wrong? No, you're not wrong. You believe in Christ. You believe that Jesus died on the cross. Do you like some of the other accoutrements that come with that burger? Yes, you do. Do I enjoy that burger? No, I don't. That's not the burger that I crave. You know what I mean? So I see where, hopefully you see where I'm going with all this.
Yeah, I like that.
That we can all agree at the end of the day that is a hamburger. It's not a chicken sandwich. Mm-hmm. It's not a fish sandwich. It is a hamburger. We all know they're all hamburgers, but they're all different. And at the end of the day, you want to take your money and you want to go get fed at the place that you enjoy being fed at. Mm-hmm. And whatever church that is, whatever denomination that is, whatever you feel evolution or creation or whatever like that, as long as you're getting that burger, as long as you have Christ in your heart, I think that is what counts. And then the rest is just fun topics for discussion.
Amen. I think we only have one more question to tackle, and that's frickin' magnets. How do they work?
Ask ICP.
So yeah, this is bringing us to the end of the show. This was a nice long one for you guys, but I think it's good to kind of go long sometimes. But I believe before we go, we have a new donor, and we need to thank him. And he had a special request for you.
He did. Jared Collins, who I used to work with. He used to let me say it correctly. I didn't work with him. I was his boss. All right, I was his boss. He's our new donor this month, and or this episode, this week or whatever. And he donated, and his caveat was he would donate if after my last podcast, hearing my horrible Donald Trump impersonation, he said he would donate if I did a McDonald's commercial as Donald Trump. So to get prepared for it today, on my way home, I stopped at McDonald's to try one of their new menu items. So I will do my Donald Trump, my horrible Donald Trump menu option imitation.
Let's hear it.
Jared Collins, you need to go to McDonald's. It's gonna be huge. The Sriracha Premium Chicken Sandwich. It's gonna be huge. Jared Collins, try the sandwich. It's gonna be huge. That's it.
That's improved in a week. That's
Oh,
really good.
It's awful.
Well, if you guys want to donate and make requests like that, you can go to Patreon, which we'll link to in the show notes. We're really close to you showing your scar, by the way.
Oh, good.
So I think we only got like $5 or $10 more a month, and then you can show your scar on the next Facebook Live.
Oh, yes.
So yeah, anything we make for that goes right back to the show to pay hosting costs, to the server, and get new equipment, get these maybe a little professionally done, and host a barbecue or something down the road.
Yeah.
You can find old episodes on iTunes. If you find it on iTunes, please rate us. That helps promote it on iTunes. So give us 4 or 5 stars, but don't go below 4. You can follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. And I think that's about it. We're going to be back next week with a new bonus episode.
Perfect.
All right. See you, Joe.
See you.